Welcome back. This is industry questions.
Sure.
Yeah? Okay. Kidada3 on YouTube writes, as someone who owns multiple pieces from various mainline collections, I can double down that the craftsmanship is a mess. I've had to repair almost every item I've bought after only a few wears, especially the Eternal collection was a huge disaster. The lining on my almost $2,000 bomber jacket frayed after 2 wears. Why are you still buying from the brand if that's the case for the products that you're getting? But that being said, when it comes to clothing, a lot of people don't realize you can repair clothing, especially if you've invested a lot into the articles of clothing that you're buying, taking it to a tailor. Sometimes they can make little patches, they can do repairs here and there that can basically extend the life of that garment. But as a brand, what you need to make sure you do is do technical testing on your clothing, because ultimately people do not live on a runway. They interact with the world, they ride the bus, they will do laundry, and you need to make sure your clothing stands up to all of these things that it's going to encounter. You know, one thing we always do here is we do pilling resistance testing. We check for wash testing, color fastness, crocking, shrinkage, wear testing. All these things are going to be so important to ensure that your customers are ultimately getting the product that they paid for. Crasio on TikTok writes, what material and construction do you think is best for high humidity or just general breathability? So let's talk about clothing and how it affects comfort ultimately at the end of the day. When you are wearing clothing and it is very tightly knit and it's not breathable, you're pretty much creating your own climate inside your clothing. And that's because you produce body heat, you produce moisture and humidity. So if your clothing's not breathable, what's gonna happen is that relative humidity on the skin side of your clothing is gonna go up. It's going to make you feel the heat more. It's gonna make you uncomfortable. So what you wanna look for is very breathable options. If it's gonna be tight against the skin, polyester is gonna be that because it can wick away the sweat. However, if you're looking for more fashion forward items, first thing that comes to mind is gonna be linen. Linen, especially a high quality one, is very breathable and you can get a lot of great styles out of it as well. That being said, a really cheap linen can feel very scratchy and is not something that's gonna last a long time. In terms of construction, I love voile knits. If you can find a really nice t-shirt in that, made out of 100% cotton, they're a knit fabric, so they still have a lot of stretch, they still have a lot of comfortable aspects to it, but it is still very breathable and it allows you to remove that moisture, remove that humidity from your skin, so you ultimately feel comfortable at the end of the day. Kara Joy on TikTok writes, do Canada Goose. 75K subscribers on YouTube and it's yours. Alpha on TikTok writes, where's Chrome Hearts? After Canada Goose. 365 Jamie on Instagram writes, can you break down the Spanx Air Essential fabric? Why is it so expensive? Why is it so soft? What sorcery is this? So taking a look at the website, when it comes to that composition, the modal is what's gonna make it feel very soft. That's what we call a semi-synthetic fiber. The way it is made from European beechwood trees, and you basically make it into a viscous slurry and you extrude it into filaments for clothing. But that's gonna be the reason why it's so soft. Why is it so expensive? What I would say is it's probably so expensive because it's a base layer. The brand knows you're not gonna be buying 5 of these. You're probably only buying 1 or 2. And ultimately, when you look at a brand like Spanx, they're charging that price because they're playing on people's insecurities. They know the people who are buying the base layers like this, they want to look and feel good. And they know as a brand, they can charge a premium to achieve that. Diego Vara on Instagram asks, I've been curious about thermoregulating fabrics and if it actually works. Can you speak more about its mechanism and if it's actually worth buying something like this for mountain climbing? So when it comes to clothing and the body itself, you have to think about your body being almost like a little microclimate. And let's say if you're wearing one of those sauna suits and you go for a run, you are encapsulating all that heat, you're encapsulating all that moisture, and it's gonna feel very uncomfortable. On the flip side, what you're looking for in thermoregulating fabrics is something that is going to actively remove that humidity and be very breathable. So when you're looking at, oftentimes they're talking about very skin tight polyester clothing, what you're doing is you're providing more of a surface area because every one of those yarns are gonna have surface area. All the filaments will have surface area. So even though you're wearing clothing on your body, because it's tight to your skin and it's wicking away that sweat, you're getting a lot more surface area to promote that evaporation. So when it comes to thermal regulating clothing, it's definitely a great option, and it's not just marketing and hype, especially if you're climbing mountains in El Salvador with your wife. Sam on TikTok writes, would dryer sheets work to reduce static buildup on polyester garments? So dryer sheets often will reduce static buildup, so will laundry balls. I personally don't use dryer sheets just because they coat your clothing in chemicals that you just don't need. And while that may solve the static buildup from the dryer, that static charge, if you live in a dry climate, is just gonna happen anyways and not really gonna resolve the day-to-day issues of it. That being said, if you wanna learn more about dryer sheets, follow Jeeves New York. Zach, who was a 4th generation dry cleaner, was kind enough to hop on our Fear of God video. Give him a follow because he knows a lot more about laundry care than I do. Groy Pop on YouTube writes, would love to see you do an episode on packaging. So that's definitely a request that we've had in the past. We are absolutely going to do an episode on packaging. We were waiting for the development center to be finished to do the whole series. But when it comes to brands and packaging, it is such an important part of the brand experience. Often when you are an online e-commerce brand, you don't have a physical presence. So you have to think about what are the touch points that you have with your customer. And when you create a really great packaging solution for your products, one, it's going to protect your products, but you get to create a customer experience and own that part of your customer's day. And really what you're trying to do is, what is the world you're trying to create? What is the experience you're trying to create for your customers? A great example for this is Apple. Their boxes are designed so that when you pick it up, it very slowly drops out. It elongates that experience, so it puts more anticipation into ultimately getting that final product. And often, and I promise you, there's probably so many people that still have their iPhone boxes sitting in a drawer somewhere, holding onto it for some particular reason when they're never gonna ever use it again. But that is why packaging is so important, because it creates that experience. Apples for Akbar on Instagram writes, what prevents tech fabrics from waterlogging? So once your clothing has become saturated with sweat, what ultimately determines that rate of evaporation is going to be the relative humidity of the climate around you and the surface area of the fabric. You're gonna see fabrics like Nike Dry Fit that are designed to have a lot of filaments and it has a lot of surface area to promote that evaporation. Ultimately, when your clothes get wet, what's gonna prevent it from waterlogging is its ability to evaporate that moisture. So if you are in a climate that is like Vegas, where it's very hot and dry, you're not gonna have any issues removing that moisture, because in this world, the world's always seeking a state of homeostasis, a state of balance. So if you have high humidity in your clothing and it's very dry in the air, it's going to wanna go to the air. On the flip side, if you are in this place, let's say like Singapore, where it's very hot and humid, because that relative humidity is so high, the delta T between the relative humidity and the clothing is going to be much smaller, so that evaporation process is going to take much longer. Obviously, going into a place that's air conditioned is going to speed that up, but it's really just about being able to evaporate from the fabric at the end of the day. So that's it for this week's episode. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and drop any fashion-related questions you have down below to be featured in the next one.